conservative talk radio. AM 770 KTTH Seattle and 94.5 FM K233BU Seattle.
There's still no deal to fund the government beyond tomorrow. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News.
Unfortunately, the DACA discussion has really hijacked everything else, including the negotiation over budget caps, funding the military, children's health insurance.
Republican Senator John Cornyn and Democrats like Senator Dianne Feinstein push for a DACA fix in the spending bill, protecting some immigrants brought to the U.S. illegally as kids.
I've got the most dreamers in California in the country, and I care a lot about it. And the only way to care about them is to get this bill passed.
But in the House today, Republicans plan to vote on a short-term funding bill that does not include DACA, or an increase in military funding, which might have some of the GOP also voting no. President Trump tweeted there is no DACA deal without a wall. He's demanding more border security funding than what Democrats propose. He's due at the Pentagon this hour to meet with senior military leaders. A U.S. Marshal is dead in Pennsylvania. One of 3 officers shot this morning in Harrisburg.
This was part of a U.S. Marshal's task force that was involved in a warrant service this morning that resulted in the use of force and gunfire.
Dauphin County DA Francis Chardo, one of the 3 injured cops, returned fire, critically wounding the suspect. A lot of Americans are sick. The flu is going around big time. Fox's Jeff Manasso has more live.
Dave, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says it's been 13 years since the entire continental U.S. saw widespread flu activity. This season's outbreak forcing some California hospitals to set up triage tents, overwhelming hospitals here in Chicago, and killing at least 20 children, like Jessica Decent-Dahl's 12-year-old son Michael in Detroit.
The guilt, because I'm a mom, I'm supposed to protect my kids, and I couldn't protect him.
CDC reports that influenza A, H3N2 has been the most common form of flu. Officials also stress the importance of getting the shot, Dave.
This is Fox News. Fair and balanced.
All money managers may seem pretty much the same. But while some money managers may recommend high commission investment products, Fisher Investments avoids them. Some money managers may have hidden and layered fees. Fisher Investments never does. And while some money managers are happy to earn commissions from you, whether you do well or not, Fisher Investments fees are structured so we do better when you do better. In other words, we're structured to be on your side. Maybe that's why most of our clients come to us from other money managers. Talk with us and find out why so many experienced investors are switching to and staying with Fisher Investments. Fisher Investments, clearly better money management. Investments in securities involve the risk of loss. Visit us at FisherInvestments.com to find out what we can do for you.
From the Online Trading Academy studio, this is AM 770 KTTH.
This hour of the Jason Ranch Show is brought to you by Farah.com.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the only morning show you need to get you through the commute, get you set up for the day and the week and weekend to come. You are listening to the Jason Ranch Show on AM 770 KTTH. And for those of you on the greater east side, 94.5 FM, we got a lot to get to. We get only 1 hour left to do it. We go over the winners or the losers in the fake news awards. The media and others are still going after Donald Trump's health. Plus, Fox News Radio's Rachel Sutherland is going to stop by to preview this morning's House Intelligence Committee meeting with Steve Bannon. But first, it's time to get your work the right way with the Right Way Traffic, brought to you by the Online Trading Academy.
Serious, but we still are looking at a really slow situation on 405 between Newcastle and the Valley Freeway in both directions. We do have one accident that is lingering southbound on 405 near 167, blocking the right lane, and a stall blocking 2 lanes of eastbound 90 now at Rainier, also partially blocking that ramp. But they've cleared one on Canyon Road and another northbound on 405 at Talbot. Still really heavy coming over the Snohomish King County line, both South 5 and South 405 and Express toll lanes are still at $10. Drive out of Issaquah is not looking too bad. It's heavy from Front Street all the way into Seattle, off and on westbound 90, but I don't think you're going to need your brakes here at all. That's AM 770 KTTH traffic.
Attend a free online trading academy workshop. Text the word backup to the number 57682 and register for ongoing Bellevue workshops, plus the Mount Vernon workshop on January 24th at 1 o'clock and again at 5:30 p.m. There's a lot of news happening all around the world and right here at home. It's time to find out what's trending.
What's trending? Media bias.
Doesn't this get you in the mood? Last night for the much celebrated award show. We are in the middle of award season. The Golden Globes just happened. The Oscars are going to happen in March. But last night was the Fake News Award. Can I just say, because I kind of like the idea of what this could have been. Take politics out of it for a moment. The Fake News Awards could have been cool, and originally I kind of thought that the president was going to do something like an actual event with an audience, going to have his nice little tuxedo on, Melania is going to be by his side doing the red carpet, just talking about how much he hates Jim Acosta and Paul Krugman. They didn't do an actual award ceremony. They just released, the GOP released a list of the fake news.
There weren't even awards. There wasn't categories, certainly.
No.
I don't know what fakest news award of the year.
It could have been the dumbest fake news story, the most dishonest reporter of the year.
Worst supporting reporter.
I was happy about the promise of what this could have been, but it was just a top 11 list. It was a top 10 list.
So much, missed potential.
Right, not even the GOP, they've got graphic designers. They could have come up with fake awards, like little trophies or something.
Exactly. I mean, here's the thing.
I'm disappointed.
I guess I'm not excited about, and I don't think anyone really should be, about the idea of the government spending a lot of time on something.
It's not the government, it's the GOP.
Okay.
The party. They can spend money however they want.
Well, it's still, that
turns out under Trump, they've made a whole bunch more money than the Democrats spend.
It was Trump's idea. It was Trump's one that was driving it.
But the GOP did it. So I'm disappointed that all they did was a top 10 list rather than the actual awards. They didn't put it even out they just did the 10. There was no top 10. Because it started with number 1 rather than number 10.
Oh, right, yeah. I don't understand exactly what order they're supposed to... Does it go best to worst?
Random. No, I don't. Yeah. That's my point, is I think it's just here are the 10 biggest fake news stories of 2017. One of them went to Brian Ross. Congratulations, Brian Ross of ABC News, although I think they just booted him to another division. They say, this is how they wrote it on the GOP website. ABC News' Brian Ross chokes and sends markets into a downward spiral with a false report.
He has promised full cooperation to the Mueller team. He's prepared to testify, we are told by a confidant, against President Trump, against members of the Trump family, and others in the White House. He's prepared to testify that President Trump, as a candidate, Donald Trump, directed him to make contact with the Russians, which contradicts all that Donald Trump has said at this point.
Yeah, so that was a story that was not true at all, and as a result, the stock market went down dramatically in the moments after he made that report. It did end up recovering some that day, but there was a clear correlation between that and Brian Ross's report that ended up getting him suspended without pay for a month. Another false news or fake news report goes to CNN falsely reporting that Donald Trump as candidate and his son Donald Trump Jr., they had access to hacked documents from WikiLeaks.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kate Baldwin. More emails, more problems for Donald Trump Jr. and the Russia investigation. CNN has exclusive new details about a message sent in the final stretch of the 2016 campaign offering access to hacked WikiLeaks documents. A previously undisclosed effort to reach Donald Trump himself, his son, and his inner circle just weeks before the election.
It turns out it was previously unreported because it didn't happen. That story is fake. They got an email with a link to the documents after they were already released publicly, and I believe it was like 2 days after it was released publicly. So that was total fake news. CNN also, according to this, falsely edited a video to make it appear President Trump defiantly overfed fish during a visit with the Japanese Prime Minister. Japanese Prime Minister was actually the one that led the way with the feeding. It was remember that photo of Trump just dumping that box of fish food in the pond? Everyone was like, oh, he just dumped it. It's because literally that's what you're supposed to do with the box, and just 2 seconds earlier, which somehow CNN and others decided not to include in the footage, showed Prime Minister Abe doing exactly the same thing. Number one, I don't know if this to me is This isn't fake news in a traditional sense, although I think it is a report that was put out there by Paul Krugman.
No, this is fake news in the traditional sense.
No, it's fake news in that they reported something that just did not happen.
But the traditional sense of fake news is that originally it was actual sites that were designed intentionally to look like news sites, and they weren't at all.
Yeah.
These are actual news organizations that are making mistakes.
The term fake news.
Yes.
So Donald Trump, number one, the New York Times. Jeez, hold on, let me clear my throat. Excuse me. The New York Times' Paul Krugman claimed on the day of President Trump's victory that the economy would never recover. How's the economy doing? Now, that's not fake news in that he didn't report something.
It's a bad prediction.
It is a bad prediction, but it is a prediction I would argue, and I think it's clear as day, because Paul Krugman hates the president. It was a prediction informed by his hatred of the president. It wasn't a prediction informed by what he thought the market was legitimately going to do. If Hillary Clinton won, his whole story would have likely... What, is this now Star Wars?
Indiana Jones?
Or Indiana Jones. No, sorry, Indiana Jones. It's Indiana Jones. And now it's Star Wars, right?
Yeah. Is that what the Oscars music is?
I don't know.
Yeah, this is the Oscars theme music. It was Trains to Fire a moment ago.
Oh, I wasn't paying attention.
They just go through themes at some point.
Okay, well, good for them. Anyway, okay, Paul Krugman's number one. Let's find out what else is trending.
What's trending at home?
So activists and politicians claim that ICE is targeting a local immigration rights activist with deportation because they don't like what she's saying. Her name is Maru Mora Villalpando. She's been here illegally for over 25 years. She's purposely overstaying her travel visa. And during the time that she's made a life here, she's made a life becoming a professional activist. She goes after the government's treatment of illegal immigrants. Sometimes she's on the right side, sometimes she's clearly not. And the left, when they found out that she got this notice to appear in front of a court, they just went apoplectic. Seattle City Council member Teresa Mosqueda, she claims that ICE aims, quote, to silence those advocating for human rights for immigrants. That's not what ICE is aiming to do. They're not trying to silence those advocating for human rights for immigrants. They are trying to go after someone who is here illegally. Now, it just so happens she's also trying to advocate for immigration rights, but the sentence that Teresa Mosqueda put out there on her Twitter feed, and we're going to try to get her on the show, something tells me she will not come on the show because she doesn't want to be questioned, it indicates that just ICE is going after critics of immigration reform. Like, that's all that they're doing, but they're not. You have to actually be here illegally for ICE to actually get involved. Now, I don't like this whole idea of targeting political opponents, right? Certainly not if they're here illegally. That is 100% wrong. But you should not get special treatment if you are an activist who's here illegally. Like, you shouldn't be getting special treatment from ICE just because you happen to not just be here illegally, but also be an activist. They should treat you the exact same way that they would treat anyone who's here illegally. So there's two things to discuss in this case. Number one, why she's being targeted and what she actually means to the entire argument about, or the entire, I guess, debate about immigration reform. Number one, I don't know why she's being targeted. Don't know. Now, the left are claiming she's being targeted simply because of her politics. They are guessing on this. That is pure speculation. There's 100% speculation. ICE has not yet made a comment. So I'm willing to withhold judgment. But should it come out that the only reason why they're going after this woman is because of her politics, I'm troubled by that. It's certainly distasteful, and I don't necessarily like it, but it should not be a shock. She's flaunting the fact that she's here illegally. At some point, that means you're going to get the attention of ICE. It seems like in many cases, she's taken positions and gone out there publicly speaking to get the attention of ICE because she wants to become a martyr. And so maybe this is the government finally fulfilling that wish to become a martyr. Now, beyond that, let's talk about what she does to the topic of immigration reform. She should not be someone being celebrated by the left. She shouldn't be. If you actually want to come together with members of the right, if you want to work together with conservatives and coming up with some meaningful immigration reform, you don't want her on your side. She's someone who holds incredibly insane views. I spoke with her back in 2015. You don't believe in deportation in any circumstance?
In any circumstance. We heard so many stories of people complaining that, you know, if somebody is not behaving in the country, they should be deported. The reality is that we supposedly have some kind of criminal system that supposedly deal when people don't do what they're supposed to be doing. Mm-hmm. But even the government right now, even the Koch brothers agree that the criminal justice system in the country needs reform.
So just because the criminal justice system needs reform does not mean we should be taking a crazy view that deportation should never happen. I would not want this person on my side if you're actually trying to come to a negotiating table and come up with meaningful change. So we'll get an update on this story. I hope to actually talk to Maru again. Maybe she'll come on. Teresa Mosqueda, we've reached out to her, the city council member from Seattle. I'd love to get their perspective on this, but I think they're being willfully dishonest in how they're framing this story. That's probably why they won't come on. You're listening to the Jason Rancho, time to get your work the right way with the Right Way traffic.
Volumes are starting to dissipate coming over the Snohomish-King County line now. South 405 in heavier shape from Silver down to 522, then is southbound 5 Express toll lane still at $10. Westbound I-90 is a worse drive than it is on 520 to get into Seattle because you're slowing out of Issaquah to Westlake Sammamish Parkway, and then again from Mercer Island into Seattle, 520 only heavy from Lake Washington Boulevard to I-5. S-curves are loosening up even though it's pretty darn heavy in both directions. North 167 slowing from at least 180th up to the S-curves. Traffic is brought to you by Sherry's Restaurants, introducing their endless pancakes. Get all the fluffy buttermilk pancakes you like for just $6.99. See sherrys.com for a location. On AM 770 KTTH Traffic, I'm Tammy Bennett.
Hey, it's Jason Rantz here. The S&P 500 post...
And the one that's gotten the most flack, but I think it's one of my most important. Look, 98% of scientists agree that our planet and our survival faces an imminent threat from catastrophic climate change. Just open your eyes and see. More than $300 billion in damage just last year from natural disasters. 3 Category 4 hurricanes making landfall. California burning up. I will cite one businessman's letter that was sent to Barack Obama in 2009. It said, "The science is irrefutable that unless we take strong action on climate change, the consequences are going to be catastrophic for humanity and our planet." You know who signed that letter?
Who?
Donald Trump, Donald Trump Jr., Ivanka Trump, and Eric Trump. What's happened in 9 years? It's only gotten worse, but Trump has now become a politician, and he's turned his back on what he now knows. And by the way, you know, the International Criminal Court has now prioritized as a crime against humanity, crimes against the environment. And what worse crime could there be by putting all of us in jeopardy from catastrophic climate change and knowing full well what you're doing?
But this really pushes the envelope. First of all, Trump changes his mind every 2 weeks anyway. That seems to be part of his nature. But also it seems to be, it's not what you usually think of when you talk about high crimes and misdemeanors. It's a policy question, isn't it?
I've received that criticism, and I think it's legitimate. And my response is the impeachment would not be for a policy difference. You would have to prove in the course of the impeachment investigation that what he was doing was, first of all, knowingly putting us all in jeopardy, knowing the consequences of this, and second of all, of course, to prove the effects that this, in fact, was having a catastrophic effect on the future of the American people and the people of the world. I understand it's far out and edgy, but what's more important than saving the planet?
So what are the more, shall we say, routine arguments in your book for impeachment? Do you think the Russian investigation is in fact going to be the smoking gun here?
Well, let me back up a second, and you know, it's astonishing that we're talking about mundane impeachment grounds. I think the clearest case right now, based on what is publicly known, is, of course, obstruction of justice. I think there is at least a strong, if not a stronger case already, just based on what we in the public know, than there was against Bill Clinton. And virtually every Republican in the U.S. House voted to impeach Bill Clinton for obstruction on a vastly less important matter than a foreign adversary undermining our democracy. It's not just the firing of Comey. It's much more than that. It's pressuring Comey to stop the investigation. It's trying to enlist the intelligence community in stopping the investigation. It's pressuring members of Congress. It is, of course, dictating a lying letter designed to deceive everyone about what really went on in that June 2016 meeting between the Russians and Don Jr., Jared Kushner, and Paul Manafort. I think that is the single strongest case right now, Dave.
Doesn't there have to be some sort of a clear intent, though? One of the theories is, for all these things that you mentioned, is that what we're essentially seeing here is not a conspiracy to undermine the United States of America, but a bunch of amateurs suddenly surprised at their success in running for the highest office in the land, making a bunch of rookie mistakes.
None of these obstruction have anything to do with being a rookie or being untutored in the ways of politics. Lying, pressuring the FBI, pressuring the CIA, pressuring senators to stop an ongoing investigation. Look, any high schooler would know that was wrong. Now, there's a bigger question, and I think you raise it quite accurately, with respect to the other mundane charge that could be leveled against Donald Trump. And I don't want to use the word collusion right now, because collusion is kind of like bursitis, it covers any pain. I will use the word conspiracy against the United States, which is one of the, by the way, counts on which Paul Manafort is charged. And I would say it is not a matter of rookie mistakes, because the Trump campaign was warned. It was put on notice by the FBI that the Russians might try to compromise them. So to say this is something we didn't know and we didn't understand, that, cooperating with a hostile foreign power to undermine our democracy was the wrong thing to do. They should have called the FBI the moment they were being contacted by the Russians. Michael Steele, a Britisher, he knew enough to call the FBI, but somehow in dozens of contacts with the Russians, nothing. Not only didn't they call the FBI, the Trump team engaged in a Nixon-style cover-up. First, conceal, deny, delay, deflect. Then when you're caught, say, oh, it was all just innocuous, a nothing burger. Just like the Nixon team said, Watergate was just a third-rate burglary.
I think you mean Christopher Steele, right? Not Michael Steele?
Oh, Christopher Steele. Michael Steele's my buddy, the former Republican national chair. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't want to implicate him.
No, I didn't think you did. So, if you were to handicap it, how many years do you think he has?
Well, in the run-up to the new version of the book, I point to two scenarios. The first scenario is the special counsel Robert Mueller comes up by spring of this year, within 4 or 5 months, something that truly shocks the world. And by the way, Dave, I am convinced, I don't know what Mueller has, but I am convinced we've seen the tip of the iceberg. He's given us just enough to justify the guilty pleas, and he's got far more. In that case, you may well see an impeachment investigation begin as early as this June. And one of the Lichtman rules of politics is that for office holders, like the members of the Congress, their top priority is survival. And if they think Trump is going to bring them down, it would only take 10% of Republicans to join with Democrats to vote articles of impeachment. Then, of course, the more problematic issue is conviction by the Senate, which is much harder. It requires a 2/3 vote. Neither Bill Clinton nor the other impeached president, Andrew Johnson, back in the 1860s, were convicted.
The case for impeachment by Professor of History Alan Lichtman, American University. Professor Lichtman, thank you very much.
Anytime, Dave. Take care.
823 real-time traffic brought to you by Online Trading Academy. And here's Chris Sullivan.
We continue to move in the right direction with our travel times continuing to come down. We still have heavy traffic to get through. I mean, it's not just going to disappear in a minute. What we have in terms of the most unusual slowing is the southbound 405 drive, though it is getting better between Bellevue and Renton after a crash right at the 167 interchange. Back down to about 27 minutes, still about a 15-minute delay over what you should expect. Coming out of the north end, you look great from Marysville all the way down to the Linwood split, but then that's when you start hitting the brakes hard. Still about an hour and 10 minutes from Everett to Bellevue, but an hour and 5 from Everett to Seattle, so we are improving there. The north end of the drive from Federal Way to Seattle, you know, the Boeing Field area on into downtown, starting to really cramp down, say from the West Seattle Bridge all the way up to downtown. The reason we're still seeing a lot of slowing on eastbound I-90 because of the problem in the left side of the Mount Baker Tunnel trying to go eastbound on I-90. It's still blocked there because of a disabled vehicle, so that's rippling back onto I-5. The Renton to Bellevue drive is back under 40 minutes. Auburn to Renton still at about 24 minutes, so that's not too bad. The westbound Lake Bridges, we are seeing the slowing across Mercer Island and through Montlake, but it's manageable. And in downtown Tacoma, we're still seeing slowing both directions of I-5, kind of around the Port of Tacoma to keep an eye on, maybe losing about 90 seconds over what you might expect. Traffic brought to you by Online Trading Academy. Attend a free power trading workshop. Text traffic 57682. Register for ongoing Bellevue workshops and a Mount Vernon workshop next Wednesday at 1 and 5:30.
At the Carter Subaru studio, we have 44 degrees.